one-handed shooting. We're going to shoot strong hand and supported hand shooting. This is a relatively long classroom session because there's quite a few things that we need to discuss. The first thing is we have to understand why we're shooting with one hand. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is that other hand may be occupied. You could be holding on to something, whatever that is, and you only have one hand available to you. The other reason, which is just as likely, is that one of your hands could get injured. Once bullets start going back and forth, the chances of getting shot in the hand or the forearm are relatively high. How many of you guys have done force on force? How many of you have been shot in the hand or the forearm? It's the same number of people. It's super, super common, okay? So we need to be able to use the gun with only one hand. Now, in this particular case, we're going to talk about technique, if you will, and proper ways to shoot with one hand, starting with our stance. You have to understand, though, that if you've been shot, your chances of being in a really good stance are pretty minimal, okay? But we have to start somewhere, so if possible, we want to be in the best possible shooting platform, especially during the learning process, if that makes sense, okay? So, if I'm going to shoot with my dominant hand only, I'm going to probably want to have my dominant foot forward. The reason for that is, no matter what I do, no matter how square I try to stay, that dominant shoulder is going to want to probably try to extend forward some. If I have my feet like this, can I shoot like this? Absolutely, I can shoot like this. But I am putting a twist on my spine, okay? And I am creating tension in my upper body that doesn't need to be there. All right, why is that important? Well, first of all, from a human performance standpoint, putting a twist on your spine is not a good idea. But when the gun recoils and I only have one hand on the gun, where does it want to go? Away from the mass of the hand, okay? So if I put a twist on my body where now my natural relaxed point of aim is over here, the gun recoils this way, my body wants to come back. It recoils, you see what I'm talking about here? I want to try to have some kind of natural point of aim if possible, so that when the gun recoils, it comes back to where I want it for that next multiple shot. If you're square up on me and put your hands out, okay? Ball your fist up and push them out towards me, right? So if I'm pushing on you, I can push this side way easier than I can that side. You see, you understand the difference between the two? So if you switch your feet around, put this foot forward, come back, and now just like you were gonna come full house and punch me, you've got more control with this foot forward than you do other way around. Make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the reason I believe that is a correct thing to do. So again, right hand, right foot forward. When I come up, my upper body comes up, I want to try to stay relatively square to the target. All right, I don't have to be perfectly square to the target, but what I want to avoid is turning completely sideways to the target. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, it does not support shooting while moving very well. But the other thing that happens is when I turn sideways, I actually have only the really small muscles in my shoulder to control the recoil and movement of the gun. When I square myself up a little bit, I start engaging more of my chest and back muscles to try to help control the gun. So I'm more stable, and I have a more stable platform to control the direction of recoil away from the mass of the hand. When I put the gun in my left hand, same thing. Switch hands, switch feet. I want to stay relatively square to the target. Now, the hand that I'm not using, what I would prefer that you do or recommend that you do is pull that hand in close to your body here. It doesn't have to be anywhere specific, but this is not really acceptable, okay? All right? Hooking it on your belt like you're, gangster style or something, that's not really it. Remember, this hand is probably injured, and if you're capable, you're gonna wanna pull it into your body anyway. There's two other reasons for that. One, you don't want it just swinging out there while you're shooting. It has a destabilizing factor to your having a stable shooting platform. And the other thing that it does is if you bring this in, that rolls in that part of your back and puts more tension across your back to help, again, control the path of that recoil. So there's a series of reasons why pulling this hand in is helpful. Now, as I come out towards the gun, the problem that we have, or the thing that we need to address, is when I have two hands on the gun, if you look, there is going to be an angle between the bore and my forearm, okay? So when I have that angle on there, when I go to shoot one-handed, I don't want to keep that angle on there. I want the bore to be in line with my forearm. That's going to allow me the most grip pressure to control the gun and the most ability to control the torque of that gun during recoil. So when I straighten it out, now the sights want to line up with my shoulder, not with my dominant eye. So we have a couple of things we can do here. One is we can dip that elbow a little bit and kind of line the sights up with our dominant eye, or we can cant the gun just a little bit to line the sights up with our dominant eye. Either one of them is acceptable. Personally, for me, I prefer to cant the gun a little bit. It seems more natural, especially when I start shooting on the move one-handed. When I transfer the gun to my support hand, I am right eye dominant. I'm gonna have to have ever so slightly more cant with the gun in my support hand to get it in line with my dominant eye, okay? If I try to dip, that becomes a little bit more severe. Otherwise, what we have a tendency to do when we keep that gun straight up and down is all of a sudden that head starts to lean over to get behind the gun. And when you start doing complicated things like that, that becomes more difficult for you to learn to do that under duress, especially from weird shooting positions and on the move if you have to shoot while you're moving. Doesn't mean you can't do it, not ideal. One of the things that other things we need to cover is what I do with the grip. You've got a couple of options here. One is the thumb is used to kind of hang it out on top of the other hand. The two major things I'm going to suggest that you do is, one is to roll that thumb down, really flex the grip and increase the grip pressure on the, if you can. So crank that thumb down, complete that grip and get more pressure on the gun. Some people are very successful with lifting the thumb. By lifting the thumb, what you're kind of doing is you're disengaging your thumb from your trigger finger, and it allows you to manipulate this without as much movement in the hand. Okay, it's the same thing you'll see precision rifle shooters do, is by rolling that thumb around and getting them off of the grip so that they're only pulling with the trigger finger. I don't know if you guys have seen that before or not. So similar type effect. For me, I prefer to roll that thumb down, maximize my grip pressure to control the recoil of the gun. We need to be able to put the gun for administrative purposes from my dominant hand into my support hand, okay? Chances are, if you have been shot in the hand and you have to now shoot with your support hand, guess where the gun's probably gonna be? On the ground, and you're gonna be retrieving it from there, okay? That is not an acceptable method for us to be practicing. I'm not gonna have you drop your gun on the ground to pick it up and practice this technique, but we need a good acceptable way for us to transfer the gun from one hand to the other. Now, there's two primary methods that are taught out there. The first one is to open up the back strap of the gun and come in and scoop in like so, okay? That's fairly common taught. I don't suggest that one, and the reason I don't suggest that one is if you open your thumb up like this, you have very little control over the gun. I highly recommend that what you do is just simply loosen your grip enough to expose the back strap area of the gun. Then you come through with the webbing of your hand, driving it high up into the back strap, and then swipe one away when you grab the other one. What's the one thing I'm doing every time I go to transfer this gun? Finger straight off the trigger. If you leave your finger on that trigger and then go to transfer it, it's gonna get goofy, right? When the gun goes bang and you only have half a grip with either hand on the gun, it's gonna be hard to control, okay? So do not do that. Finger goes straight before we transfer it to the other hand. What happens? We're transferring the gun back and forth between our left and our right hand to do several different drills. If you lose control of the gun, what do you do?
Just let it go.
Let it go, let it drop. Do not try to grab a gun in midair to control it. If you lose control of that gun, it's gone. I like to do that first iteration very, very close to the targets. And the reason for that is, for whatever reason, There's a lot more movement in the gun when we only have one hand on the gun, and that creates anxiety. People start thinking, oh, I gotta shoot, I gotta shoot, I gotta shoot. And what I found is if I get you up here and let you realize that if you can let that gun move around and do this right, you can shoot extremely well, extremely accurately, allowing the gun to wobble a little bit. And then as we back away, it seems way more comfortable and much less difficult. Well, the goal for me for one-handed shooting is I want you to have the ability to shoot fairly accurately, but still rapidly, okay? I feel like a lot of times when people practice one-handed shooting, they kind of like, okay, I gotta shoot one-handed. They stand there and they shoot nice and slow and controlled, and they shoot a little group, and then they do their left hand, and they're like, yep, I've shot, I did my one-handed, and then they go back to just blazing with both hands on the gun. We need to learn how to be able to fight with that gun with only one hand on the gun, control recoil, shoot rapid shots on target. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna back up just a hair, not too much, probably just behind the line here, but we're gonna shoot at this 4-inch circle here. So right-handed will be on the left 4-inch circle, left-handed will be on the right 4-inch circle. So the goal for you is we're gonna shoot 5-shot strings. I want you to start off relatively controlled and then progressively start trying to increase the speed until you start to see the wheels fall off. So you're gonna have to kind of learn to control the gun grip wise, but then not anticipate. So I'm gonna shoot a couple of drills so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna shoot probably 3 strings with my strong hand, and then I'll shoot 3 strings with my support hand, showing you what I'm talking about. These are gonna be 5-shot strings, but I'm gonna try to progressively get faster every time until I see the wheels start to come off, okay? All right, so it looks something like this. Ready, up. Okay, pick up the pace a little bit maybe. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, trying to get a little bit faster every time, okay? Put that thing into my left hand. I'll call these out for you through, but the same thing, I'm gonna start out relatively slow, if you will. All right, do the thing again. I'm gonna start picking it up. I'm gonna lose one every once in a while, but I want to try to be aggressive with how I'm gripping the gun and controlling the gun. Here we go. All right, one more time. All right, same kind of thing. Aggressive on the throttle. See how fast you can go and still maintain control of the gun. If you get into a situation where you only have one hand to save your life with, you need to be able to shoot that gun rapidly, aggressively, and accurately.